Hi, everybody. Celia Waterhouse here. Thank you so much for joining us at OnPoint Mentors. Today we have Faith Martin. Now, Faith Martin is a global casting director, both in film and in television. She's venturing into a little bit of producing now, and she is a presenter and a facilitator of various programs, including the Breakthrough Experience. Today, she'll be talking about the universal creative. Welcome, Faith.
Thank you. Happy to be here, Celia. Great to see you.
So great to have you here. I'm always so excited when I get to talk to you. We always just become little girls and we just chit chat away.
I like the little girl part.
No, I was just saying, you're a casting director now, you're on the other side of the camera. And we were just talking about, do I need a slate?
Yeah. Well, it's a, and by the way, I'm working locally as well, but most casting directors are global now. From anywhere, you have to have a view of the rest of the world.
Right.
That's the way it is.
Right. So you're in Australia right now, correct?
Welcome to the next chapter of life.
Yeah. Anyway, so explain to me what the Universal Creative is about. It's a unique title, so I can't wait to hear all about it.
Okay, so what we want to do today is dip into aspects of what this class will be about. I'm just going to go through some highlights. It's probably good to read the intention, and my intention is to expand hearts and minds in the creation process and have people leave a legacy, which, the greats have done.
Right.
And the greats are still available to us, so to draw on that as well and see how they can contribute to helping us shine. We're meant to shine. As Mandela said, it's our greatness we're most afraid of. He who spent 30 years in jail and they had to keep changing the guards because they kept falling in love with him. So it is our greatness we're most afraid of and what we can hide from, so it's asking me and others to come out of their hiding and keep going to create the classic, rather the classic, the lasting that goes across space and time. And I want to just read you this quote: "The best work transcends its cultural matrix and speaks directly to our common humanity across time and space. And from my heart, the arts is everything to life." Sure, science is and everything, and I respect that. But to me, in my life, the arts have been an essential part of a wealth that's been shared with me. Yeah.
Right.
So that's what I want to share my knowledge so I can help grow the wealth in the arts.
Well, we want to hear all of your knowledge here. The arts community is really having a tough time, especially now.
It is indeed. And I saw Patti LuPone singing the other day on Give My Regards to Broadway, and I got a tear in my eye. I thought, well, we can't wait for theatre to come back. Whoever thought we'd be missing it? And it's and all these wonderful artists and actors and singers and dancers,
Right.
Screenwriters. We want to see it all. Yeah.
We certainly do, and I'm very much involved with the art community here in Boulder, Colorado, and so we're always trying to figure out how can we get creative with our talents and performing still in front of an audience. So I'm looking forward to hearing some of the advice you're going to give us.
Well, 25 years studying universal laws, to me, what ignited me was to bring these two worlds together. And it's mastery in performance, mastery over the self, the small self, the fearful self, so that our greatness can step out. That's where I'm tuning in.
Right.
So I start this class with what's it all about, Alfie? Because, remember that film with Michael Caine and the song? A little bit of gossip on that. Burt Bacharach had wanted Dionne Warwick to sing it, and he was told, no, you've got Cilla Black. And so when he went to London to record the song, he made her sing it 48 times before we'll go again, we'll go again, we'll go again.
What?
And yeah, So, but what's it all about is who are we, and what are we here to do? I remember many years ago thinking, what am I here to do? Where did that question come from? Well, we have an inner voice and an inner world. But I think that first of all, let's deal with what are we here to do. So there is a purpose, finding a purpose in life. And I was fortunate that I had a calling many, many years ago, right place, right time, in my early 20s. They're thinking of starting a casting department, and the giant bell went off. That's it. I didn't know. I had never planned it, but I went over there and I said to this guy, well, I'm here. And he said, we're going to interview a few people. And I said, no, it's my job. Save your time. And he laughed. He thought that was amusing. But 3 phone calls later, he said, oh, for God's sake, take the job. So I want to say, if you're certain, the more certainty you have, not ego, to that calling and that voice, you're the leader. You're a leader to the moment. So that's led me on the most extraordinary journey. And so the purpose could be something like Professor Graham Clark, who's 80, still going to work with the cochlear ear implant. And I mean, he doesn't, why stop working? Because, the ideal is you keep productive no matter when and where and how, no matter the circumstances, you keep producing. Stephen Hawking, still productive, still searching, still learning. The boy soldiers from Sierra Leone, captured, turned into child soldiers, suddenly find themselves in America, adopted, write a bestseller, become an advocate for children across the world, all from a little village in Sierra Leone. We don't know, but what we can do is listen to ourselves. What would I absolutely love to do? How do I want to make a difference? Because we're born wanting to make a difference. We're born wanting. My little granddaughter, who's 3.5, told her father, when I grow up, I'm going to go to work. He said, what are you going to do? She said, well, I don't know yet, but I'm going to go to work.
Great work ethic there.
It's so beautiful, because work is, it can be a kind of perceived as a dirty word, or go to work, I'm going to have to go to work. We don't want to have to, we want to love to. Right. And when we love to, there's no finishing line. So
that's a great testament to the people.
About what's
oh, sorry, there's a delay here. I was going to say that's a great testament to the people that are surrounding your granddaughter, is that she sees people who love to go to work. Right?
Yeah. And of course, I think the generations that are coming through now are extraordinary. I mean, I've been working with teenagers that will blow your mind. I mean, they've got international careers. It's not that they're ambitious, but they're just, they're going where life takes them, And so yes, purpose. I think identifying our purpose, yes. So with the virus, it could be, look at all the medical people who've got to shine. God love them for their calling and the service that they've given, because that's when they stepped out there. That's what they wanted to do. They wanted to make a difference with people's. They want to support people's lives. And I think that's terribly, quite humbling when you see that. Joel Edgerton was interviewed recently, and he said, well, he started out, he wanted an actor because he was trying to get attention. But of course, he's gone on from there. But I thought it was very humbling that he should come out and say that, and to display that. So when we step into our purpose and we love what we're doing, we can become a leader in our field, because we don't stop. Some of the great actors that have left a legacy, the Charlie Chaplins, many of those, are still with us and are still inspiring people to go out and do what they love to do. Right. And they became masters in their field, So that, and then what's it all about is, who are we? Now that's magical. And when I found out a few answers to those questions, it really turned me on. I really wanted to, wow, we're really stardust. We're really made up of light. We absorb and emit light. Good heavens above. But show me how to do this. Show me how I can And actually, when I came to think of it, I'd seen performers who'd done that. You know, you watch the Nereus, you watch there's a performers that just literally in the zone give off light, you know, because they're ignited and they're loving what they do. So I want to say that, you know, one of our greatest assets, of course, is our mind, you know. But we have two minds. We have an immanent mind, which is a mind that can be governed by the emotions, which is the emotions take over. And that immanent mind is the survivor. That immanent mind is just getting by. It's not it's accountable for living, surviving, but it hasn't really tapped into its greater self. And we can go in and out of that, and we're meant to, because we don't ever get to a finishing line where we say, oh, well, I'm done. I know everything now. Oh, for goodness sake, I'm glad that you showed me what it was all about. No, it's a journey of processing. And so we need to know that immanent mind was there. It's our friend. It's telling us where we're playing. It's our animal nature. It's our survival. It's a small story. It's a day-to-day story. And then we have our transcendent mind, which is where we take the emotions, we see the purpose of them, we question them, we find the truth in them. And I'll talk about that later. And that transcendent mind is our angelic force. That's the force that has a great deal of certainty, that tunes into our inner world and our inner voice and our guidance, if you like. Not too much woo-woo there, but I believe we do have guidance in these respects. And we can often find ourselves in the right place at the right time. We think, I can't believe that I'm having this conversation. I can't believe that I'm sitting in front of this person. And we can lament the one that we want to be in front of, but their purpose was to leave. So it's answering the bigger question. So that transcendent mind knows. Now we have governance over that. We can choose to have governance, or we can just go with the flow of what's occurring, and then be a victim to it. So we can be a victim to the immanent mind, or we can be victorious in the transcendent mind. And ego is not involved here, okay? So when we do the transcendent mind, we tap into our timeless nature. We're not caught up in time. When we're in the immanent mind, we're caught up in time. It's the danger. We're alert to danger. We're tuning into fear. Our possibilities can be limited. But when we get into the transcendent mind, the world opens up, and we can feel unbounded, and we can feel limitless. Now, this is not getting infatuated with us. This is not getting elated, because if we do, we'll get caught up on that. So when we get infatuated with ourselves, or with the outcome of something, or you know how important we are, then we'll run a cycle of infatuation, resentment. We'll run a cycle. We'll go in and out of two just to get us back on track.
Right.
It works so beautifully. We can't escape, because it's coming at us. Everything's on the way, and it's coming at us to help us live a magnificent life and find beauty and perfection in that. So yes, and we're also, now with that mind, the immanent transcendent mind, we're also a radio station. So we're receiving and broadcasting, receiving ideas and broadcasting thoughts. But when we're caught up in the immanent mind and the emotions, it's muffled. The sound's muffled. We can't, the inner voice is getting a bit muffled. And what? I can't hear. Oh, I feel a bit lost. Oh, I don't know what to do. I'm uncertain. I don't know. So until we tune in and we start asking a few powerful questions and get back in on tune and on track, breath of fresh air, we're off again. So all of that is important. And then the other thing is, we recognize that because the greats are still with us, we've got a mortal existence and we've got an immortal existence. So Professor Graham Clark is leaving a legacy, because he's just going to go on and on and on, and he'll teach others of what he's done, and that whole aspect of hearing will be no longer a loss. Now watch this. So I say, do we thank Professor Graham Clark, or do we thank his father, who was deaf? Now the father would have felt like a complete, maybe, but say he did, he was down on himself and he felt, well, you know, what can I do? I've been born deaf, etc., in a time where probably there was no patience with it. But I say, well, we thank everything is involved in the story. And it doesn't matter who's playing what role, they're all contributing to the story. And the hero is only the hero to the degree they're challenged. So Clark himself has said, despite the setbacks and despite the challenges, I had to keep going.
Right.
There was no choice to stop. He was called, and so therefore that's what we're looking for in the pursuit of purpose. It's not all going to be smooth running. We're going to have our challenges. We're going to have our setbacks, and it's, pick yourself up, dust yourself off, tune in, get going again, and tune into what you see you want to do. Now the Greeks had a saying, know thyself, be thyself, love thyself. So in What's It All About, Alfie, we want to ask the question, who am I? What do I know? What do I want to be? What do I want to do with myself? And how can I appreciate myself more? So the summation of that chapter is really, it's a life of purpose, managing the emotions and listening to our inner voice and our calling,
right,
and making a difference and living a life from the heart. That's what the first section is about. And then, did you want to ask me anything about that?
Well, I want to know, do you think we all end up finding our purpose?
Do we all end up
finding our purpose and living in our transcendent mind and overcoming the day-to-day story? Do you think we all find that?
People say they just still don't know what they want to do, but I say then that it's time out. There's so many opportunities now on the internet to learn from different perspectives. I mean, I happened to meet Dr. John DeMartini at an incredible time in my life where, the flight was definitely in disturbance mode. And so out of that void came the value. I listened to this man, and I'd always been, people had to make sense to me. It had to be practical. And John's teachings, he's one of the great minds on the planet today. I don't have him on a pedestal, but I'm so grateful to his commitment to what he does in sharing knowledge. And so some people say they don't know, but I think it can be because they can be bogged down by the story, running the story about, that's never going to happen. So my advice, watch what you say to yourself, watch what ignites you, because no one can avoid that. Something happens and your body shifts and changes when you're doing what you love, whether it's going out and taking a singing class, which I intend to do. I want to be part of a choir. I can't wait to be part of a choir. I always wanted to dance, not like Ginger Rogers, but tap dance was my. So before I go, I'm definitely going to be tap dancing, and that'll be a joy. So watch what you absolutely love. I mean, even small children know what they love and know what ignites them and what they want to recreate. So I don't know what to say except that don't stop the search of asking yourself, what would I absolutely love to do? And be grateful for what you have, because it's a very short journey. It can be over. We don't know when. We don't know when. We all know we're going there. We just don't know the date.
I love that. And ignite. What ignites you? That's a visual image. What creates that spark?
How do you feel when you're doing what you love?
Right.
Right in this virus period, I've been walking amongst trees. I am turned on by trees at the moment, and these 100-year-old trees and what the body language they have in them. I'm photographing them. I'm putting poetry under them, and I love it.
Wow.
And listening to the birds. So yeah. The next one is I've entitled it "Somewhere Over the Rainbow." This is the dreamer, the reactor. The one that one day it'll come, just putting it off, waiting for the right person to arrive in a relationship, the Mr. Right or Miss Right or whoever is the right, as opposed to the creator who's the igniter. So one is the dreamer, the reactor, and the other one as opposed to the igniter, which is the creator, one who is taking accountability. And so journeying into the knowledge of the emotions is this one I want to know. Who are we? And more about ourselves. and becoming more in order to step out and be authentic and take a gamble and with ourselves and listen to ourselves, listen to our inner voice, we have to take the journey of self-management. So to me, the self-management is asking, well, what do I need to manage? So certainly we need to manage the mind and the emotions and work out how we can tune into a bigger story, to the classic story. So one, we're taking ownership for our lives. And again, I don't want to trivialize this because some people have had extraordinary circumstances to deal with. So, but we do want to empower ourselves, because if we don't, we'll find that someone's overpowered us. Something or someone will continually overpower us if we're not claiming our story. Okay. And I want to say it doesn't get easier, because once we step up to mastery, it's ever accountable, and it's ever more. And that's what some people can feel defeated in that, give up. And particularly in the arts, who cares what I do? Does anyone appreciate my painting? Does anyone appreciate my composing? Will I get paid for it, or am I going to have to be a pauper, and so forth? People can give up their dreams. So first of all, it's looking into our story and trying to make more sense of the through line of that. And I can definitely help people with that, because I've had to do that with my own story, and still I keep learning from it.
Yeah.
And to know that it doesn't get easier, it gets more accountable, and appreciating our uniqueness. Well, we've talked about that. So let's deal with. So in this chapter, it's dealing with the emotions. So we're going to have pleasure and pain. We're going to have acceptance, rejection, fantasies, nightmares. We're going to have construction, destruction. So right now we're in a virus, which is destruction. So we could focus on the virus of the destruction, but it's not a bad idea, and it's wise to think about, where are we as a globe constructing? Where is we an individual constructing? What are we constructing? If something is destructive in our lives, if we've lost our job, well, what's constructing here? What's life showing me? And on a globe, where because in the Second World War, First World War, no one would touch the heart before that. They wouldn't operate on the heart because it was a sacred zone. But once the war came, and there were so many people with shrapnel around the heart, that the doctors had to leap in. And so we had a huge construct in surgery. And now with recent wars, we've got a huge construct around, the bionic man. All of that has gone to sophisticated levels. The bombing, there are experts that spent months studying the muscles we use, so that the dancer who lost her leg in the Boston bombing could dance again. And I met a woman recently who'd lost both her parents in a drowning accident, which she was in. She lost her brother and her entire family, but she survived. And she spent years beating herself up, years, that she shouldn't have lived. And it was tough. And then suddenly, out of nowhere, comes someone who says, would you do a swim for a charity? She said, are you kidding me? No. And I said, well, think about it. I don't have to think about it. I don't want to do it. He said, what if I got you a coach? So after one failed attempt, she went back and she put her face in the water and she started training. And now years later, she's done these amazing swims. She's going to swim the English Channel. Because what she worked out is when she had her face in the water, she was with them.
Oh, I got goosebumps.
Yeah.
Wow.
So often out of a catastrophe in a family, there's one that shines and is living for everybody. That's not uncommon. So I show people how to manage the emotions, but all of that is looking at the two sides. Okay, so
I like how you just say that, Faith. Oh yeah, I just show people how to manage the emotions.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, they keep coming at us,
But I know I have seen you in action, and I know you are so good at teaching and showing and demonstrating to people how you can manage those emotions. But I love how you just I just help people. It's like, no, she really does.
Well, they say nothing's missing. And when I was at boarding school, there was a whole story before that where Hollywood and the greats were in my life from the age of 3 to 4. I sat in front of all the films and all the stories. There was no classification. I saw it all. They just transported me into another world, and my whole family were up on screen. Because I had teenage parents who couldn't cope, and I found this grandmother who loved films. This adopted grandmother. And so, but when I was in boarding school, I had this lovely nun in the house situation who was like a mummy figure. And she and I would plait the children's hair, in the morning. And then I'd go to school and get beaten up by the teacher down there because I didn't know my lessons and I didn't know how to answer. And I used to try and fudge and cheat her, and she'd catch me out and stuff like that. And then I was asking myself the question, because nothing's missing. I said, well, where was mummy in the household? But where was daddy? Daddy wasn't there, see? So there was something missing there. And then I thought about the nun. I thought, well, she was like a man. She sounded like a man. She was like, had this deep voice, and she was very tall and overpowering and scary. So I thought, oh, she was daddy. So then the two together took me forward and gave me the foundations for my life. And the one that was really the daddy replacement was, you will learn. You can learn and you will learn. So in a way, she was tough, but it was what I needed to wake me up to say, it is possible for you to learn. It is possible for you to stand up and speak to people.
And look where you are now.
So, God love her. I thank them every day. And gratitude is right across this program, I teach gratitude. Gratitude for what is as it is. To get into your heart every day, or at least once a day, twice a day, and say, thank you. Thank you for giving me the foundations.
Right.
Thank you. Thank you for giving me the foundations. That's all they wanted to do, was to take care of us, and they did in the most noble way.
I once heard from a young man. He asked a question in front of a group, and he says, people say to practice gratitude, but what does that mean? How do you do that?
Well, people usually thank God for the good stuff, Thanks God for giving me this. Thanks God for giving me that. Thank you. I mean, I did that before I came across John's work.
Yeah.
To thank my mother and my father who'd abandoned me and deserted me. Hello, I don't think so. But actually, gosh, and I don't lament my mother's passing, she is gone. But, I am who I am, and I've done what I've done. I've had the journey I've had, and I've been blessed with this life that these two people gave me. That was their commitment. That was their journey. And I see that they're my greatest teachers, but in turn, I was a great teacher to them too. That was the contract. So the teachings go both ways. Right. When we're often critical of our parents or our siblings, we only see it going one way. But actually, the two sides are involved, and I've had many teachers along the way. And many teachers, like when I first started in the industry, I was very shy, and I was more, can I come and play? Instead of saying this is my job, it was, ooh. And I was usually like that with people who had degrees, who'd gone to university and stuff like that, because I had them up on a pedestal, that learning, rather than I hadn't acknowledged the learning that I had done, that I had put in, the yards I had put in, the detail I had found, And so when you're like that, you can't be yourself. You're not your authentic self. Right. You're shrinking yourself to someone that you think is greater than you.
Right.
And so a lot of them, but they were great teachers to me, because the more I shrank myself, I didn't like it, the more I stretched to say, I want to do this, And the greatest thing that happened to me was having a breakdown in my early 30s, where I just, it took me 2 years to come out of that. But boy, am I grateful for that, because it not only helped me find myself again, but it also helped, I've got the benefits now of what I was doing then for my body, Gave up heavy smoking, moderated my drinking. Not that I was ever a big drinker, but I was certainly drinking irresponsibly for my birthday, for my body.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
so we build on the small story. The small story is judging and blaming. I'm not doing, I'm not getting on with my life, and I don't have a purpose because they let me down. They abandoned me.
Yeah.
It was a terrible thing they did, and then we carry that to our grave.
Yeah. Yeah.
To me, that's a waste. That's a waste of life.
I was going to say, can I ask you? You said, it's a lesson to be learned from both sides. What did you teach them? What did they learn from you?
Oh gosh, well, my dear mother, who was just turned 17 when I was born. God love her. I must have scared the pants out of her just arriving, But she got on. She had lost her mother when she was young. She hadn't had a very supportive childhood. She and my father really decided he didn't want to be married. He was only 19. So for two of them, they had to get on and they had to grow up quickly, and to be resourceful and to not let their backstory control where they went to from there. My mother actually created a great life. She was very good at what she did. She had great taste in clothes. She had great taste in people. She was a great friend and so forth. So and my father. Well, my father, I think, just to love himself, just to appreciate himself for who he was. He was an actor before people had careers in acting here, and he was the one who said, "See that? Can you see that? Hear that?" So I only have to hear a voice or tenor or something, and I go, I'm off, So he gave me his inner world, which is the richness of the arts and what he saw and what he felt and how he responded. And so, so just my presence was enough to unsettle them. And when you get unsettled, you have to take charge. You have to make some plans. You have to get going and not give up. And they didn't give up. So, yeah. So we can run the judgment and blame, which is a small story, or we can transcend that and go to a much bigger story, a story that is inspiring, a story of appreciation and gratitude. It's from this space that we can create. We can create something magnificent. We can not give up on ourselves. We can not. We can grow our clarity, and we can see possibilities and opportunity. We can create them. Yeah. So we're honouring ourselves in our journey, and joining the ever universal story. There's a big classic story out there, and we're joining that. We're joining the greats. We're choosing to leave a legacy and choosing to be of service, to help someone, to make a difference. Because I say acting and writing and directing and composing, it's all a noble pursuit because it's enriching people's lives and inspiring them. Music, the great composers, what they've done, even the soundtracks of movies and things, they're just have been geniuses. So the second one is step up to our classic. Step up to the classic, mate. Okay? And the third one is someday my prince will come. Okay? So do we get to go to the ball? Do we get to shine at the ball is really what this one's about. And are we waiting to be claimed? Are we waiting for someone to come in out of the wings and say, it's you can go to the ball? Can you imagine that? That was me waiting. Can I come and play? I was playing Cinderella. Well, the whole thing is Cinderella knew the hell what was going on. The ball. And so we want that determination, to say, get yourself to the ball. So here we could have the void driving the values. So in other words, born a perceived mistake, I've actually found in my life that there are no mistakes. And that's a classic void to the value. And there's many others, of course, But so we can use the setbacks as an excuse, but take that and recognize it and go, oh, okay. And with that, I'd recommend Dr. DiMartini's book, The Values Factor, to people to buy that book and do your values and not know yourself. Take that step to know yourself if you don't already ready, because no one betrays you. They're just trying to have their values met. And if their values are met, they'll move on, you know. So in this one, Cinderella. So Cinderella, to me, if I was Cinderella, I'd say, well, claim the traits of the great rather than play your story and sit around the fireplace and say, boo hoo hoo, everyone gets to go to the ball except me. No, find the friggin' slippers or red shoes and get yourself dressed up and get ready to go and be and enjoy yourself, you know. Forget about the prince. If the prince comes along, that's fine. Be your own prince. And notice that we go from doubt to euphoria. So she went from doubt. She goes from doubt to euphoria. We need to manage that. You know, euphoria can just be as unstable as doubt if we're over elated and infatuated. So, and here I think it's getting a vision for what we do. You know, what would I love to be, do, and have?
Right.
Get the detail, because there's a grand organized design which we can call God, and in that design, the detail is necessary. Getting the detail, and highlighting the self-management and voice. Think about, a lot of people say to me, I wasn't heard when I was a child. No one listened to me. They couldn't give a damn what I had to say. I remember being absolutely shriveling when my mother said to me, no one's interested in what you have to say.
Oh.
So ever since I've had something to say, you can't shut me up. Well, you want to know through your creations and whether it's a cock of your ear or it's a piece of art or an actor or a director or whatever it is, how do I want to impact people? What do I want people to get? What do I want people to, and with Clark, it's wonderful. I want them to hear, okay? And what will be the benefit of hearing? And what will be the benefit of that? And so on. So yeah, it's getting the vision and the detail and chunking it down. If you get something really big, you can chunk it down, because sometimes things can be so big that we get overwhelmed and overcome. Well, where do I start? But if we take the sort of, internationally acclaimed or leave a legacy or whatever it is, or what are the 7 things that I need to have in place for that? Right. And then what are the 7 things off that, each 7, until we get to the point where we say, you know what, I could do that in an hour's time. I could go and get that bit done. So in other words, the preparation to the big dream is chunked down and accessible, sitting in front of us. And say, oh, I know this person, they could help me with that. So build socially, it's not climbing a social ladder, but building your support team. In other words, I've got my doctor in place, I've got a solicitor, I've got the dentist in place, I've got this person I can go to, and be prepared for miracles. So, there's a person that came into my life about a year ago who's been helping me tremendously and just saying, oh no, people help me, I just want to help you with that. And I just go, wow, look at that. That's just, thank you, thank you for being you and for sharing your knowledge, So yes, chunking things down, I think, is, and get the detail and then acting on that detail. And then the 4th one is the quote from On the Waterfront, where Marlon Brando had a scene in the back of the taxi with his brother. And he says, I could have been a contender, Charlie. You've let me, like, in other words, you let me down. I put my life in your hands. They were brothers in a challenging background, and the older brother looked after the younger brother. So, but the younger brother found himself shrinking his own plans to fit in with the brother's plans. And so it all comes to a head in the back of a taxi. And it's a very powerful film. It was Marlon's first film. Now, we could say, for instance, take Marlon Brando's journey. We could say, and a lot of people just love his work and look back on the work. But that was a challenge. Everybody wanted a piece of Marlon, and if he didn't have a stable background either. And so that was really hard. In many respects, he had it was a tough life. Right. And if you look at the documentary of his life, you think, I don't think we ever really knew the true man, you know. And he actually got cast in that film as a fallback. They wanted a sort of tough guy like a James Cagney type, you know. And then someone said, what about this man? He's new on the block at the actor studio, and he's very handsome and so forth. And Eli Kazan met him and cast him. And it was very poignant. And it was Eve Marie Saint's first film as well. And they were amazing together. So, and what he did then was he challenged his brother, and he stood up and he went out, he faced his fears. And it was poignant because there was a whole crowd of people watching him take on the challenge. They were fearful. My God, look at him. What's he doing? He took on the challenge and he won, and he changed the whole status of the wards at that time. And but it was interesting how all the other followers were watching. They, oh God, I couldn't do that. He's going to risk his life. You know, he'll be killed. You know, but actually, yeah. So I could have been a contender as the world of regrets. You know, like I never got around to doing that. There's a lot of people in retirement villages now. I don't say they're all regretful at all. I'm not saying that. Don't misunderstand me. What I'm saying, some of them want to know they've been useful. Some of them want to know that they did great in some respect, and they did. No matter who they are, they did. There's a man I know who went to thank his mother, who's got Alzheimer's, and sat by her bed for half an hour, little tiny shell of a person left in the bed. And he just kept thanking her for things that she'd done. You know, thanks, Mum, for this and that. And she turned her head over towards him and she said, I did my best. The gratitude and the love pulled her out of the Alzheimer's, which I thought was quite a beautiful story. So some of them are waiting. They're waiting to feel, well, I did do something. I did make a difference. And so think about that. So we also, in this one, I want to say where we're shrinking, catch what we say to ourselves. You know, I could have been a contender, Charlie. Well, you know, these things myelinate the brain. You know, when we run the old stories of judgment and blame, and you said, you let me down, you didn't do what I expected you to do. Well, as someone said the other day, just because you're a parent, who says that you know everything? You don't. You need a license to drive the car, really. You know, there's a love that you have for the baby that comes in, but after that, well, you know, it's how do we do it? And sometimes the parent that is there, that is over parenting, can stifle the independence. So actually, you know, you have a child who's dependent. And you know, there's a lot of children in wealthy families opposed to not wealthy families who are given everything but don't necessarily appreciate. Again, I don't want to generalize because that's not wise. But you know, just because you give your kid everything doesn't mean to say that they're fulfilled, that they're filled up and have certainty. You know, they'll still have their challenges. So taking command and recognizing that we do have a strength, particularly when we love to do things, we find we've got a real strength. We've got no doubt. I'm going to do it. I don't care what. I am going to do it. So here, you know, we're taking accountability and we ask ourselves the question, what challenges are we prepared to take on? Like Marlon took on the whole structure and authority structure of the waterfront at that time. That was big stakes. And remember what we said, is a hero is only a hero to the degree that the stakes are high. So that's why in movies, when you see the hero, you know, winning, it's because they've taken on all these challenges and they won out, you know, and transcended the challenges. So, and the other thing is to watch out for our dialogue. You know, I could have been a contender. What's that actually saying? It's saying, you know, I avoided my choices. I put all my dependence on you. You know, you were supposed to be accountable, not me. All of that, because that myelinates the brain, and then you find you get stuck in that mode and you can't get out of it unless you start asking powerful questions. You know, if they abandoned me, who was there? Well, already I had a bigger scene there. All the movie stars were there, all the actors, all the composers, all the storytellers. all the greats were there. And I've gone on learning. I was ignited by them, and I've gone on learning from that field. So thank you to my parents for stepping back. So often ask yourself the question, who stepped back in order that I got what I needed? And give yourself permission to create. That's what I do when I take people through that class. And and then, of course they step away with more questions, but the idea is to ignite the heart, open the heart, and give them permission to go out. I had a person who has dwarfism in my last adult class for this, and he got my number and rang me 10 minutes after the class and said that he'd sobbed because he had this most amazing revelation. And so I said, well, keep in touch, because let's see how you now run with the ball. He's acting, and so I'm sure he wouldn't mind me repeating that, because it's a small world. It might be okay to find here, but yeah. So the summation is a life of purpose, managing the emotions, letting go of the history and the biography, and step up to the calling and making a difference, and living a life from the heart. Right. Yes, please. Yes, please.
Yes, please.
Next level. And I can assure you, as you get older, it's not, well, for me, it's not getting easier, because you start thinking, how much time do I have left, So we are our own challenges. I don't want to give the impression that I know everything, because we don't. We're all a work in progress,
Right. So Faith, the art community, the actors, musicians, they're all struggling right now. Again, I brought it up earlier, but what advice can we give them? Some practical things on how to, not get overwhelmed by the uncertainty and the lack of jobs that are coming out. And, the world is changing, but even before the world changed in 2020, they still had the anxiety and the lack of self-esteem and all that. How can we help them?
Well, let's stick with the virus phase.
Okay.
So my daughter-in-law is a co-producer at a little theatre here, where they have run a couple of play readings. One included Alec Baldwin. So Alec Baldwin was in his, lounge room, and the two Australian actors were here, and it went out live, streamed, right?
Okay.
And they did a couple of those, and they were great plays. And then they ran one from the theatre, an empty theatre, which is only a small theatre anyway. And I introduced them to a company here called Tribal Apes. And Tribal Apes came on board, put in 9 cameras, and it was a 50-minute one-act play, which starred an actor called Toby Schmitz.
Okay. And
he performed that for 7 nights in a row. And you could book a ticket internationally. I think it went to Germany and England, Australia. It was streamed out there, and you could buy a ticket to attend one of those nights. And so, and they're looking at all sorts of things of what they can do. So there's I think what I've learned over the years is to say to myself and to others, watch for the changes and watch how you can take that change and use it somehow. There's quite a lot of people who've said, I've done very well out of this virus, because they've chosen not to see barriers, and they've chosen to open up to, well, what is there? So if we're managing these emotions, we can say, well, what is there? I think if you're certainly focusing on being productive, loving what you do. So in other words, you might dedicate, like for me, I'm saying I want to dedicate more time to learning and to possibly writing, and to do things that ignite me rather than lament what isn't happening, which is the past, in other words. So we're looking at we're looking at the past. And
Right.
so I think, I mean, I say to actors, well, would you like to learn a language? Would you, and to me, if I can, I mean, I don't know whether choirs will be working, but I could go out and do a dance class, or I could, what is it new that I could do? Yeah, it's tuning into what you can rather than what you can't.
Right.
And if it's creative, then it's how can whatever I do can serve my purpose. Again, that's in the values factor. It's linking your values.
Right.
So in other words, you know what your values are, and if your values are the arts, then how can I learn? I remember working with someone years ago who was a graduate of one of the local schools, one of the universities, and it had got down to two people for the job, and the other person had got the job, and I'd heard that he was very disappointed. And I admired his work, and normally casting people don't do that, but I said to his agent, well, tell him to come in, So he came in, and I said, what is it you'd rather be? He said, oh, I'd rather be working with a theatre company in England. He actually, in his values, he didn't have local television high in his values. So I said, well, what theatre company? He didn't have an answer. It became too general. Well, can you find out what theatre company that you put your goal towards? Have you worked out, how you're going to survive there? Is your partner coming with you? What will the rents be? Can you get a visa and how long? All the details attached to being there. So we take ourselves there and say, well, okay, what do I need to have in place? The chunking down, right? And so start doing that. So look at where we might be fantasizing, but not taking any action on it. So I knew someone who was the granddaughter of an Italian grandfather. And as a child, she was very critical of the way he spoke because it was too sing-songy. It was kind of like, she got criticized at school for it, for the food, the clothes, and how she spoke, So I would say, well, go and find your and her voice had flattened out. It had become so dull because she'd flattened all that song out of her voice, So go and hang out with grandfather and learn Italian and enrich your voice and your expression. Do a yoga class online. I tell everybody when they're young, yoga. breathing and learning the art of breathing. There's great experts online about breathing, how that can support your anxiety. Meditation, there's all sorts of people on that. So looking after the body, looking after what you can do and who you can go and learn from and what you can put in place that you never leave time for. Let's put it that way. But you love to do it. Does that help, you think? Does that speak?
Yeah, no, it is. But, it's every time you open up a magazine or online digital magazine these days or read something in the paper, there's always, some famous actor, singer, performer who's either, committed suicide or passed out from drugs or have been involved because they can't pull themselves out from the depths. Are there programs out there for artists and actors and screenwriters to?
Absolutely. There was a very inspiring story about a footballer called Greg Innes here, who'd gone missing, and he had challenges around alcohol and I'm sure other pressures of which we weren't aware of in being a football star. He was at the stage where he wanted to move on, I think. And they put him into rehab once. He went into rehab once and just didn't get the right people in the sense that it didn't make a difference. And then he found the right person and it just made the world of difference. Now, is he going to have the challenges again? Maybe. But he was in the right place at the right time and found the right person. So people who are caught up in drugs, or alcohol or extreme mood altering things, that's a different story. they've got to be prepared to give that up,
Right.
or not give it up, but manage it. I mean, or know whether it's obsessional. But that can then take you down to those lower levels of the immanent mind, which is survival. And that's where you're most at threat of taking your life or doing what, because you're not tuned into any higher purpose, or you're not grateful for what is as it is. Life's let you down. You're not managing your emotions. Do you know what I mean? Again, I so don't want to trivialize these feelings, because I know we can all go to dark depression, you know. But it's catching it, and my feeling is that it's catching it. It's saying, you know what, I'm exaggerating here. I'm minimizing myself and I'm exaggerating the circumstances. How about I just sit down and work out a list of things that are productive that I can do with my life?
Yeah.
I can see that those drugs are not serving me. I'm going to get fit. I'm going to watch what I'm eating and putting into my body, because that's not helping me with my anxiety. I'll go and have some acupuncture, or I'll go to a chiropractor, or I'll manage the pain somehow. I'll put a plan in motion to look after my mind and my body. And then I'll sit down and work out what would I absolutely love to do. I'd love to, and I think thanking people, like finding the people, calling people that maybe friends you haven't seen for a while, and rather than wanting something from them, have them want to give them something. You know, I'm not ringing up to moan and groan. I'm ringing up to tell you you've been a fantastic friend.
Yeah.
You know, what a contribution to my life. Do you know what I mean? So try and do that, you know, and get into the heart. Is that?
No, that's great advice, because you think of, social media these days. I mean, even in the last 10 years has changed dramatically, and how it affects people's lives. I don't know if you watched The Social Dilemma, the documentary about what social media does and to the behavior of us humans. It's quite fascinating. But, again, people in the industry are constantly being judged superficially, on social media, and that the noise from the outside, they think it's bigger than the noise from the voice in the inside, right? So how can you fix that perceived ratio disparity?
Well, remember a little while back in our conversation, we talked about infatuation and elation, the cycles of elation and depression.
Right.
We might look at how we set ourselves up for that attack by grandstanding, or looking for approval, or looking to stand out. And so if we work on the principle of that center line that we can expand, is when we're on track. So we will attract those things when we're a little bit unstable, when we're up in the unstable fantasy realm, to get us grounded. Okay, so this is all a bit too much for someone who isn't aware of it. So that's why I tried to simplify what I would advise.
Right.
But that's how it's happened, because when you're down on yourself, you'll get supported. When you're up on yourself, you'll get challenged. In the center, we're growing our self-worth and our self-deserve, okay, through positive, negative, perceived positive, negative, okay? So up and down, if we're down here, we want to look for where the support is and where we can give ourselves the support. And if we're getting challenged by trolls and social media, then maybe we have to look at what our actions were that brought that about.
Right.
It's not self-blaming or anything, but it's just being aware. Oh, okay. You know what? I don't think I'll hang out there for a while. I'll focus on getting me stable.
Right.
Rather than looking for someone outside to lift us up and grow more followers or whatever it is. We place too much importance on it, maybe. Yeah.
Now, it brings us full circle to, when you said if you doubt yourself, people can see that. And in the industry of our artists and actors and musicians and singers, and you need to know who you are. What's it all about? Every time you said, "What's it all about, Alfie?" I just wanted to sing, "What's it all about?" Same with "Somewhere Over the Rainbow," right? It's like, oh. But I love the whole syllabus or curriculum, or the explanations of your entire course, from the foundations to getting to go to the ball and shining. And I think everyone needs to really take a course like this that takes them through the little steps, and to really realize our dreams and where we want to be. And I know I've seen you in action, and I've heard you speak, and I've heard you teach, and you're just fabulous. So
there are people. When I first started with the DiMartini training, there were about 250 throughout the world, I think, and the work was only in 3 countries.
Right.
Now it's in,
I think, 65 or something.
66 countries, and his drive is to step foot on every country throughout the world.
Right.
But so there will be people in America who are trained facilitators there. John himself does the breakthrough experience online. So there's lots of opportunities, not just with me. Yeah. Lots of performers doing the work too.
Right.
Owning the traits of the greats, is where do I have that? So and so is so compelling. Okay, where am I compelling? Where do I know I'm compelling? Who feels I'm compelling?
Right.
So that you're not saying, well, I'll only get there when I can master compelling. When you're already seen as compelling.
Right.
So owning the traits of the greats is also a very wise thing to do, and to
I remember you once said a long time ago that if you understand human behavior and universal laws and how the world works, it makes for a more authentic story when you're trying to perform or write a script.
Yeah, I think that, yeah. I mean, years ago, before I'd sort of come out with it, because people think you've gone a bit, loopy. And even some people think I've given up the business, which I haven't. People would come in to play stereotype characters in television, like being a pedophile,
Right.
Now, I'm not, don't misunderstand me, I'm not saying pedophiles are good guys, but I'm just saying that, there are 2 sides to everyone. I remember, I'll get back to that story, but I remember years ago I was doing a class, and I asked people to name the worst person they'd ever met, and the 3 traits that they didn't like about them, and where they knew they were the opposite. And I had this guy with all these spider tats over his arms, and I thought, I was fascinated by who this guy was. He wanted to act. And then we found out he'd been an undercover cop, and he'd interrogated a very well-known criminal. And he said he thought it was this, this, and this. But actually, he got to see he was intelligent, empathetic, and something else as well. And I said, well, how did you find that out? And he said, I interrogated him for 9 months.
Wow.
It was fascinating.
Wow.
So again, we're in dangerous territory here, or potentially dangerous territory, but certainly controversial. But yeah, so I'd say to people, well, if you there's an old saying, if you're drunk in a script, you don't play drunk. You try to play sober, and that's more truthful, and that's what people do.
Yeah.
So if you play the bad guy, in however you would judge him to be, him or her, then it's not going to ring true. And then when they made the adjustment and didn't overplay this sort of bad guy, it actually was much more authentic and truthful. And I'd say to them, "How do you feel now?" And that feels more translatable. It feels more truthful.
Nice.
Yes.
Well, we're just going to have another conversation about some of those deeper issues. I know I tried to dive into, some of the darker issues of the industry because, I think people are struggling right now. So,
yeah.
I thank you for sharing, your wisdom, sharing your stories, and sharing your methodologies with us, because I think it's going to be very helpful to a lot of people out there. So thank you for joining us.
Yeah, well, sometimes, even though you know all these things, you can fall behind yourself and get caught up. And I think there are very few people who, nobody has it down pat all the time. Everyone has their challenges, and the challenges are greater. That's what I say. When you take on a purpose, what price are you prepared to pay?
Right.
That to some, that's an unanswerable question. I'm not sure about that.
Well, I certainly hope we get to see your course soon.
Thank you.
Because it sounds fascinating. Can I be the first one to take it?
Thank you. We go back.
All right, Faith. Well, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you, Julia.
We'll speak soon.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.